people will say that, like, being fat means that you're like, haha, capitalism is working because the problem communists have is that they starve. The problem capitalists have is that they're fat or whatever. Being fat in America is a sign of poverty. And the reason for that is because the cheapest, most readily available, most filling food that you can get as a poor person is usually like gunked up, like corn syrup bullshit, you know? And that's really cheap and easy. Wealthy people don't eat that shit. I mean, some of them do. Like Donald Trump loves McDonald's or whatever. Some of them do, to be sure. But like, if wealthy people can usually get really good meals that are a hell of a lot healthier just because they have the money to, you know? We subsidize it so much that it's been artificially lowered to a point where it's like, oh, well, this is how we keep the proles fed. It's prole feed, you know? You're eating prole slop is what you're doing. They're creating it for you, and they know what it does, and they're just giving it to you. And it's chemically addictive. Humans are designed to eat. We are really susceptible to like good tastes as a way of guiding our behavior and our instinct. Like, it's obviously we eat. That's like the thing we do to not die. That's the main thing we do to not die. I just do not think it should be allowed for corporations to like do this shit, okay? Provide cheap food, sure, whatever. But the idea of like, hey, we can make this more expensive and more chemically addictive and marginally more tasty by also making it fucking kill you, you might as well be loading with carcinogens. And we have laws against that. So I don't see why we can't have laws against this. You know, I'm full Michelle Obama Stalinism, all right? And by the way, I'm coming after soda as well. All of the shit that you like that's bad for you, there are better versions of it. And the only reason that isn't what you're seeing every day when you go out to the grocery market or the restaurant or whatever else is because it probably doesn't fit in with the super ultra subsidized like corn syrup grift that's going on. You know? Like people think that like oh, why take the fun away? Like, dude, the corporations are the ones having fun. You're the one who's going to have diabetes at 43. They're the ones whose CEOs are retiring with billions of dollars. Like, they're the ones having fun, you know? You think you're having fun because you're enjoying the prole slop. You're like the hamster with the fucking pellet when they press the button, okay? Like, obviously. But you could have better food. I don't want like fucking high fructose corn syrup desubsidized. I want it to be taxed and made illegal. And everyone who has it instantly gets arrested, obviously. What is this? Study reveals possible connection between high fructose corn syrup and opioid addiction. What? Dietine fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup, HFCS, impacts the brain the same way as addictive drugs. It triggers a response in the brain's reward circuit that leads to continued cravings in much the same way as a narcotic. We're really vulnerable to stuff like this. Also, neurodivergence can make you susceptible to food addiction. Again, to be clear, if all of the food that we were offered, like day to day, was reasonably healthy food, this wouldn't be as much of an issue. A good example of this is Japan, okay? Now, I know lots of Japan from the many wise Oriental cartoons that I've consumed. And also, I went there for a week. And you know what they don't have in Japan? Fat people. Now, a lot of people say this is because Japan has some kind of like ultra strict cultural bias against fat people. And they do. And it's bad. I'm not in any way condoning that. There is something else that Japan has, though. And it's on average much healthier food. Get a dessert in Japan, and you're getting a way different experience than a Western dessert. Go get their food or whatever. You're talking rice and fish and seaweed and stuff. Like, yeah, of course. Obviously, that's a hell of a lot healthier. You know what it is, though? Tasty. It's really tasty. So isn't it weird that, like, their, I guess, like, default cultural diet lends itself, while still being delicious, lends itself to being way the fuck healthier than our hyper-subsidized corn syrup diet, you know? It probably doesn't help that a lot of, like, I don't know, soul food or southern food or whatever the fuck, like, American food styles there are tend to be super ultra deep fat fried, you know? I mean, you can have that shit, but again, I would rather people think like, oh, I'm gonna have like a big splurge of a meal. Let me have this like chicken fried steak or whatever, than a person just accidentally inhaling 3,000 calories from a Dunkin' Donuts smoothie. Brazil's the same. The average meal here is way the fuck better than the USA. Yeah, it's literally like a cuck thing, you know? Very bad take by Vaush. Let people eat what they want. No. If you want to eat a gigantic 3,000 calorie sugar monster, make it at home. Buy the sugar. Buy the high fructose. Watch yourself pour cup after cup of sugar into the fucking blender, okay? You make that choice. This is not a matter of let people eat what they want. This is a matter of corporations making billions off of pushing incredibly unhealthy and addictive substances to people who often have very little knowledge of or understanding of their health, okay? People don't usually monitor the individual, like, health points, their fucking macros and micros, their nutrients or whatever, because historically humans haven't had to do that. We eat what we can, we get the food we can. It's like cats. You know how cats, like, will pretend that they're starving to death if they haven't been given their food at exactly the right time? Cats intellectually know they're not starving to death. They're animals. They want the food. They want the food. You give them the food. They eat the food. You know, they're dumb, and we're dumb too. We go to the Dunkin' Donuts. We see the sugary drink. We eat it. It's like, oh well, there's a day's worth of calories. You know, whatever. But there's not much intellectualizing, and I just think it's kind of fucked up that like everyone has to pay for this, and it's purely to the benefit of the corporations. No one else benefits from this. Group shaping U.S. nutrition receives millions from big food industry. Yeah, like everything else that's regulatory in the United States, it has been turned over to corporate interests. Like we've seen this before with the food pyramid and the carbs thing. Like this is a known factor, you know? Vaush so treated like cigarettes. I guess we do tax the hell out of cigarettes. I just don't think the thing is like even with cigarettes, you can only get a cigarette from smoking a cigarette. But you can have a healthier, tastier version of basically any bullshit you get outside using like real human food and not the slop they put together. Vaush, I genuinely don't understand why you want drugs legal but not super sugary food. Like, I'm not disagreeing, but I don't get why banning works for one, not the other. I mean, you can tax the shit out of it if you want. I'm talking about like proper disincentive structures here. But the difference being is that like if a person is addicted to a drug, I think they're going to do anything or go out of their way to get it. Like if a person has like a heroin addiction, I think they will break any law or do anything they need to get that fix. And that treating it like a criminal issue or like banning it or whatever, probably. Well, first of all, we're talking about a difference between ownership and distribution. Okay, these food corporations are distributing the drug, not just possessing it. I don't think people should be arrested for possessing a high fructose corn syrup sugar drink or whatever. Second of all, I don't think people will do anything they can to get a 3,000 calorie Dunkin' Donuts milkshake. Because the thing is, food desires are replaceable. If a person has a craving for like a sugary treat, there are a billion ways to get that aren't like the super ultra mega going to kill you diabetes drinks, you know? Whereas when it comes to shit like heroin or cocaine or whatever, there's not really like a replaceable, like that's like a proper addiction thing. Whereas in this case, it's more like people form repeatable habits and their health just slips out of control over time, you know? Google's supernormal stimuli explains why we're like this. I just don't think people understand how vulnerable we are. Describe these imitations that appeal to primitive instincts and oddly exert a stronger attraction than real things. Ah, yeah, like the fucking grug. This is grug brain. This is the this is grug brain intellectualized. Junk food is the new tobacco. Experts call for restrictions to tackle obesity. Yeah, I don't think high fructose corn syrup should be banned. There are valid uses for it, but Vaush, I'm going to drop a very hot take. And I don't know if you'd agree, but as someone who is fat myself, I don't think anyone who is fat is actually happy about it or wants to be fat. And if they say that, they're usually copium. In a lot of cases, yeah, but I do think there are people who legit don't care or actually who like it. And I think that's totally fine. I don't think there's anything morally wrong with being fat. I do think that most people who are fat could probably enjoy better lives if they weren't, purely because of like health stuff. But this is just like, again, it's purely like a corporation's cucking. It's pro slop, you know? Yeah, again, none of this is meant to be a moral argument against being fat. It's the pro slop thing. So in today's America, is there a way to eat healthy, tasty, low-effort food, or do you have to sacrifice at least one of these aspects? No, you don't. Literally, again, like, there are tons of rice and bean and chicken meals that are cheap and incredibly tasty. Fast food isn't even that cheap these days. Like, Starbucks coffees are fucking $4 or $5 or whatever. People go out and they get, like, the dollar menu is now, like, $3 or $4. Like, nothing's cheap, you know? And the crazy thing is, all of this is still this expensive with the distorted prices caused by the incredible subsidies enjoyed by the corn and beef industries. Whereas if we subsidize stuff like rice production, we would all be able to get like fucking gigantic bowls of rice and chicken for like $1 outside. Not $1, but like we are subsidizing the worst shit, man. We could be doing better. People frame like people are getting fatter over time, and people unironically want you to believe that this is like a discipline issue. Like people like especially conservatives are like, hey man, let me try to explain to you how this is just human beings are just getting less disciplined over time, you know? That's definitely what's happening, which is ridiculous.